Okay, so here's some of the analyses that I did. So the first set of analyses use paragraph as units. You're looking at some curves for BE5 ExpBias easy. The x-axis is sequence, so paragraph by paragraph. The y-axis is essentially cosine. The four curves are sentence new, sentence old, word new, word old. So it actually says sentence here, but what it means is that I'm projecting a sentence into the previous paragraph. So the paragraphs are not being split up into sentences in this analysis. So I might have a paragraph of 4 sentences, and I'm globbing that all together into one supermassive vector. Word new and word old do something different. With this, I split that paragraph into words, project each word into the basis, and then project the current sentence into that. And accordingly, each of these have no measure at 0. They need one paragraph block to start measures. That's why the measures start at 1. So one way to think about this is that the sentence in this case, which is actually paragraphs, is kind of an accumulation, and it always goes down. Word actually is more of an instantaneous measure because it's only a basis that includes words from the previous paragraph. Now what's kind of interesting about this is that they track each other extremely well, and the reason for that is that the paragraphs are so big that the word-based measure, the instantaneous measure, probably has 30 or so word vectors in the basis, just like the sentence unit has that many vectors in the basis. So what's kind of lame about this, and the reason I wanted to do something else, is this is easy, this is difficult, easy, difficult, easy, difficult. And you can see that there are some differences, but they track each other ridiculously well. And you might say, oh, what's happening at this point right here? Oh, it should be giving me a text description, but I guess it's not. Maybe that's a different one does that. And similarly, if you look at some of these others, like this is replication. Sorry, shouldn't be ExpBias. This is replication difficult and easy. Replication difficult, replication easy. Again, they're really similar. And it's even pretty similar for food drying and yoga. These are from the reading across genres stuff. And yeah, there are differences, but you know, they're tracking each other really, really well. So I wanted to do a different set of analyses that looked at different window lags. So this is for ExpBias easy. And now what I'm doing is I'm actually doing sentence splitting. So paragraphs are always being split into sentences, and I've got either 5 preceding sentences or 25 preceding sentences. And that's why here you see this is 0, 0, 0, 0 until it gets to 25, and then it starts doing things. So that it needs all of this context to start doing its measure, so there's nothing here for that. And then I also continue to do sentence new and sentence old. This is just, again, a total accumulation. So the basis just keeps growing. Every time I see something, I put it in the basis, and that's why it always decays. And word new and word old are, again, the instantaneous measure. Now what's really interesting about this is that if you look at sentence new, that's this light blue, right? And it just decays, right? And then the next thing that you would expect in terms of history would be 25 new. And you can see that 25 new generally has just a little bit more information than the other, but not a whole lot. And for this one, I can actually mouse over. So this was a sentence that just said probe, right? Because that was in there, and the sentence splitting isn't perfect. This one, he might think and give additional verbal and nonverbal something. So these are places of new information. How can that be possible? The fortune teller asks him about his love life. Anyway, so that's fine. So the first one is the sentences. The second one's a window of 25. And then if you go up, well, then it's a window of 5, right? This little green bar. And then what tends to go slightly above that is the word, the instantaneous one. So really you can just look at this and see that the more context you add, the more it smooths it into this kind of exponential decay of some kind. The less smoothing you have, the more jagged it gets. And it's really interesting to me, honestly, that Word and a window of 5 track each other so well. I find that to be really quite interesting. Because certainly the Word, the instantaneous one, is easier to calculate in a lot of ways. So, likewise for the new information, these things are largely symmetric. So if this spikes down, this spikes up, and you can kind of see the symmetry, right? This matches with that, that matches with that, this matches with that. And this is just generally true because, one is a cosine measure and one is a vector length type measure. So the correlations between these you're going to find are about the same kind of correlations you get between a cosine and a dot product. So it's just, I'm not saying there's not any additional information in this, but I am saying that it's not like a whole lot more additional information. Okay, so that's easy. This is difficult. Easy, difficult. And now you can see that there are actually some differences. So look at the amount of crossings above the 0.4 line right here versus difficult. It's usually below 0.4 until you get to the end. So, there's definitely more variability by looking at sentence level units. So I guess in that sense it was kind of effective to do this, although we really need to correlate to some behavioral measures to see if this is worth anything. Groups, RAG, reading cross-genre groups, and food drying. You can see there's a pretty big difference there. This is some fictional thing, another fictional thing, Bartleby the Scrivener. Fiction 1, fiction 2, right? Kidney donor, bird vomit, right? So you can see that there's variability here. Whether that variability tracks anything interesting, again, is worth exploring. But there's definitely variability. And, honestly, what lag makes the most sense to kind of get a sense of the variability that's helping us the most? I think we just need to go back and look at the the various measures. Certainly the instantaneous word-based stuff is very similar to 5, and you get some nice variability in that. And the 25 is a little bit dicey because you need 25 sentences of context to really do anything. So, if you want something that you can start getting the given measures right away, the word measures are pretty decent for that. All right, that's it.